Hello, and welcome to The Director's Cut, a new podcast brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. Each week, we will bring you a new interview with one of Hollywood's top directors discussing their latest film released this season. Each interview is conducted by a fellow director, which allows for honest and revealing discussions about the trials, tribulations, and bittersweet victories that come from leading a crew towards a singular creative vision for a film. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or our SoundCloud page, where you can also find our first episode with Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese discussing Mr. Spielberg's newest film, Bridge of Spies. For our special bonus episode to celebrate the launch of the new podcast, we will hear from two directors who share a deep friendship, a cultural heritage, and a history of viewing each other's troublesome rough cuts. We are speaking of Mexican directors Guillermo del Toro and Alejandro González Iñárritu. Mr. del Toro's films are vividly imagined tales that incite fear and wonder in audiences. From the dark fairy tale Pan's Labyrinth to the evil monsters battling giant Earth-saving robots hit Pacific Rim, his pictures are filled with stunning visuals and unique designs. Del Toro's newest film is Crimson Peak, which he describes as a callback to gothic romances, but is of course touched by his signature dark twists and lurid imagery. In the film, a young wife joins her new husband and his troubled sister in their ancient family mansion, where countless secrets lie hidden beneath its foundation. Interviewing Mr. del Toro about the new film is his longtime friend, Alejandro Iñárritu. Fresh off his stunning accomplishment with last year's Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, which won him the DGA Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Feature Films. Oh, and Best Director at the Academy Awards. Mr. Iñárritu has his own new film coming out soon, called The Revenant, and will be the focus of an upcoming episode of The Director's Cut, where Mr. Iñárritu moves from the interviewer chair to the hot seat saved for our subjects. But for this week, Mr. Iñárritu turns the spotlight on his mentor Guillermo del Toro for a discussion about the making of Crimson Peak. Enjoy!
I couldn't be more happy to be here tonight. It's a privilege for me to be with a dear friend of mine who changed the landscape of Mexican cinema a long time ago by approaching a film that opened the eye for all of us, a generation that were buried under bad films and no hope. And when Guillermo came to the landscape in Mexico doing his first film, Cronos, it really opened the eyes for every filmmaker. And, I met him because when I was struggling editing Amores Perros 7 months inside, suddenly, I heard that he generously wanted to help me. And I said, okay. So he was talking to me by the phone saying, you should do that, because he saw it by a tape of a common friend, but I didn't meet him at that time. So then I said, if you want to fix it, come. Next day I opened the door and Guillermo is there with his eyes of a boy. And then, honestly, he really helped me to shape Amores Perros as it was. So I owe him always that incredible generosity with no interest to help a colleague. So this is a true colleague that I met through the passion that we share. And something that has surprised me all my life is how, and I don't know how he do that he's always going back and forth from very intimate, personal films, from Pan's Labyrinth or Devil's Backbone or Cronos, and then jump from these giant productions, managing, from Hellboy or to Pacific Rim, and films that are in a huge scale. And he's always going through that stretch all the time, challenging himself and going back and forth from this. And what I found fascinating about this new film of Guillermo is precisely, and that's my first question for you, Guillermo, I personally feel that this film, in a way, after all the film that you have done, in a way, combined that big scale, ambitious film with a very intimate, personal kind of story. And so I just want to ask you how this came, how this start, how this film come.
Well, I after Mimic, I decided Mimic was such a bad experience after Cronos that I decided that I would do the more adolescent movies in English and the more weird and adult movies in Spanish. And because believe it or not, I wanted to make a great giant insect movie on Mimic with themes about ecology and family and this and that. And what ended up there was not that at all. And it was so frustrating. I said, okay, I'm going to use big tools, learn to use big tools. Without Mimic or Hellboy, I couldn't have done Pan's Labyrinth without the tools I learned on that, or Blade and so forth. But it was very clear. And then after Pan's Labyrinth, 8 years ago, I decided I was going to risk it and do an adult movie in English. And I decided to do a genre that, has not been produced, in the scale and the way I wanted to see it in 40 years, which is Gothic romance. And I thought I'm gonna do a proper Gothic romance with all the kinkiness and the weirdness and of course it was not a very easy movie to pitch. When you say female centric, R-rated, violent, a tale of incest, on a genre that nobody has done in 40 years, the studios were like falling all over themselves to make it. But I think that's part of the beauty. I mean, we wrote it for ourselves. We wrote it on spec. We wrote it for the pleasure of writing it and honoring the books I read as a very strange child. One of the first movie I saw at age 4 was Wuthering Heights with Laurence Olivier, and then amongst the first books I read were 2 books that would prove vital to me: Frankenstein and Jane Eyre. I remember the thing that I found dislocated a little bit is that Gothic romance is such a feminine, strong feminine genre, and I felt that it had diluted over the years to either an actor with a candlelight, no set, and a lot of cobwebs when it became B movie. But when it was A movie, it was Dragonwyck with Vincent Price, or Rebecca, the Hitchcock Rebecca, or Jane Eyre, the Robert Stevenson's Jane Eyre. And I wanted to recuperate that sort of sense of splendor and recuperate how strong and kinky the genre could be. So we wrote this.
I really love the fact that the women are really here, the real power of it, and at the same time, as you were saying, I agree that the Gothic is this story is in a way intelligent, but it's super perverse in that sense, but in a way very mysterious and ghostly, and obviously the use of the architecture, the medieval Gothic architecture, which is so intricate in the Gothic fiction.
Yes.
How you came, I would say, visually to all the design. Where you start from creating the world of this film. I mean, obviously the period, but then this house in the middle of nowhere with all those holes in the walls and all those very mysterious things that are, for me, always were telling me something there.
Yeah.
How you came from the universe around this
well, the Gothic romance, the first Gothic novel is 1780 something, with Horace Walpole writes Castle of Otranto, and it's the first time I think that any art movement embraces romanticism in such a dark way. It's the marriage of love and death, and it is anchored on a building to start with. Castle of Otranto links something that will remain a staple in Gothic, which is a building has to be part of a narrative. And Poe uses it, for example, in The Fall of the House of Usher, uses it as an extension of the decay of his characters. So it has many things that have commonalities with the fairy tale. The sort of princess that falls in love with a dark stranger, follows him to a castle of sorts where there is a secret. There is, in fact, a tale by Charles Perrault called Bluebeard's Wives that is very much Crimson Peak in many ways. And I started by thinking, okay, I have to imbue it with that sense of fairy tale magic. I have to make it opulent, but I want to not make eye candy, but eye protein. So I want to make something nutritious on the visuals. So what we do is I do an 8 to 10 page biography for every actor, for every character, and then I share these biographies with wardrobe, set design, and my cinematographer. And we sit down and we say, okay, we want it to be beautiful, but what does that beautiful mean? How are we helping the narrative? And we create the first part of the movies in this golden amber age of discovery in America, the future. You know, Henry James said, defining Gothic romance before deconstructing it with Turn of the Screw, he said, the Gothic romance is the clash between the future and the past. And the ghosts represent the past that frees us and doesn't allow us to move. And I thought, I'm going to make America this sort of Jamesian contrast with the European world, and it's going to be golden. It's an age of promise. Buffalo, New York in 1901 is the most electrified city in the world. They have steam engines, typewriting machines. Is completely modern. And this girl comes from there and goes to a completely cyan and blue cool world, which is Allerdale Hall. And then we dosified not having red anywhere except the clay, the ghost, and Lucille, which are
and the
joined.
blood.
And the blood, of course, yes, the blood, always the blood. But then you start layering it with everybody, and you say, okay, their clothing, let's make their clothing 10 years older than anybody else's. Let's make Lucille's dress, the red dress, have a spinal form in the back, like the ghosts are going to have. Let's show shoulder shapes that are butterfly shaped on Edith, and then make Lucille like a cocoon until she reveals herself, and then her robe opens like the wings of a moth. The house, the Cushing house, you sort of codify it so it has the most modern, William Morris-esque wallpaper. You see the wealth, straight lines. You can see it's a nouveau riche house, with all the luxury. Allerdale Hall is the opposite. It's a house that has a foundation that is medieval and romantic at the bottom. And then you have this opulent, neo-Gothic, Gothic revival architecture. And it's such an act of pride and they were so happy with their wealth that they create this 4-story high foyer that they never thought they needed to repair one day. So a hall is there. I wanted to sort of do the anti-Downton Abbey, which Downton Abbey is for me is class porn. If this rich aristocrats governed us, things would be so great. No, they are assholes. Most of those guys are assholes, and they would be assholes because there's an entitlement, and these guys, never thought, we're going to need to put scaffolding and go and repair this. We will always be rich. And I wanted them to be sort of sucking the blood out of the earth. And all these things, I tried to tell little by little. The machine, you see the model machine that he makes is so beautiful. And the big machine is all rusty and horrible like a dinosaur. So everything visually has cues. The shape of the corridor is the shape of a human being. We triplicated the wood so that it creates an effect that it looks like it's out of focus, but it isn't. We established a visual theme of moths versus butterflies. And we establish it on the furniture, on the floor, and everywhere. We create the furniture in 2 sizes, 30% bigger when she's weak, 30% smaller when she's stronger. The bedclothes change size. Her cup, you don't notice that, but at one point she has a coffee cup the size of a cereal bowl, with a giant spoon, and she looks smaller. These are things that you layer, but we spend 7 months layering patterns, colors, and classifying it so it could be like a living painting.
I'm now, that you are explaining all this, it makes sense, because something that really took my attention was that the universe is so exquisite and so complex. And as you said, it's a character, it's an extension of what the story is about, the decay of all that, which is particularly from the Gothic fiction, which again, as you said, hasn't been explored, and it's so elegant and restrained, and something that I
except when we go crazy.
I agree. I love that.
Yeah.
But once I remember we were doing something together, and Guillermo said, "If I arrive to a set and there's no a monster, I'm unhappy."
Yes, true.
I have never seen a monster in the set, only me in the mirror. But but anyway, I think in these guys you don't have a monster. Only the monster sometimes is the human souls, and that's what you were maybe trying.
Well,
to achieve.
there's a lot of stuff that is done counter. I mean, one of the things that is counter is normally, as I said, Gothic decayed all the way to becoming this sort of cliche cover of an airport paperback of Fabio shirtless rescuing a girl. And I wanted the girl to rescue herself and then to rescue Fabio. It's like, I really,
that's good.
That is really counter to most expectations, but it's I'm surrounded by strong women. Everything in my life, wherever I turn, there are strong women. My kids, my wife, my mother, everybody that collaborates in the movies, producers, and I just wanted to have, basically the males in the movie are pretty useless. Pretty ineffective, I would say. And I wanted to reverse that. I wanted to reverse, one of the things you were mentioning, the fact that the ghosts are not the scary thing. That's really tough because the easiest way to make a movie like this scary is you stick to the ghosts being malignant. And then they appear and they are instantly scary because you have a baggage. But it's sort of a self-sabotage, but one that I seek and relish. I did it on Devil's Backbone, and I'm doing it again here, which is the most scary thing in these tales is the humans. It's not the ghost. Another thing that goes counter is basically everybody nice gets punished and everybody bad, quote unquote, you hopefully, if I did my job right, you get to feel for them or understand them. Because again, the easiest thing is hate the bad guys so much that at the end you want them dead, you want them dead, you want them dead, and then you get your wish and you are so happy. But for me, it's the opposite. I find it more moving to know them a little better before they die, before they are just the evil guys. I always say all the great villains in history, their moms calmed them, changed their clothes, they sent them to school, tended their when they were sick with a cold. So, it really, I'm more intrigued by that than the other formula. And finally, another thing that we reverse on the Gothic is the sex. Because normally, sex in Gothic and certainly in horror is negative, is disempowering. And I find in life, sex is fucking great. First of all, and it's liberating, and it should be celebrated. And I wanted a moment of sexual empowerment, not for the female, but for the male. Actually, the girl is comfortable in it, and she actually is not the one that learns from it only. She liberates him, and I wanted those are all things that are done by design counter to all of that, including making the monsters the humans.
I think that another thing that got my attention when I saw the film was that you are navigating in a way with this very exquisite and in a way revisited genre from an audience that is not used to that in a kind of a genre that you are exploring for the first time, expecting from you something else.
Yes.
You took that risk.
But that happens in every movie with me.
No, but it's fantastic because
one is the movie you want me to do, and the other one is the fucking movie I do.
And that's great because honestly, not every filmmaker do that.
And then there's our third movie, which is that one that the trailers sell.
but you are doing exactly what the people is not expecting, which is exactly the courage of yourself and being brave. And you were navigating with this genre and dealing with very tough dramatic elements as the incest, for example. To visit that in a film is always dangerous. And there's elements there that could have been extremely, as a director, directing actors with those kind of situations when two brothers are lovers and then they are caught by them. In a way, it's very easy to get into the melodrama in a bad way. And I think the tone and the directing the way you direct the actors, they were really always navigating in a very radioactive, dangerous zone. I would like to ask you about the casting, how you arrived at that, and how you work with the casting rehearsals. What was the way you went into that precise tone of directing?
Thank you for asking that, because I actually, one of the reasons for the visuals is to allow them to go to those places. If you have a completely realistic movie and then they go into monologues that are, or they take their characters into real emotional places, but the tone of their acting is not real. The tone of their acting is a couple of notches above real. And you have to then, if you do a Sidney Lumet Gothic period mansions, all real, you shoot on location, it's out of place. So I tried to do visual melodrama, and audio design melodrama, so that the movie has a couple of notches above reality, so the actors can do that. Now, Gothic romance is either you fall into it or you don't. Is very, very, is a very extreme form of genre. And I think the actors understood that their emotions needed to be real. The 8 to 10 page biography is the key, because then I tell them everything. I tell them from their birth to the end of the movie. And I tell them what their zodiac sign is, what food they like, what colors they like, and all of that is explained in their clothes. I help them decorate. We decorate the rooms together. We hide things in the drawers. We find little cues about their characters. We change the clothes. We do everything not as a visual, but as a part of the character construction. And then we do table work, and then we discuss those biographies, and I whatever we discover in that process, then it goes into the screenplay. I rewrite for them. And then on the set, we have a commonality. We know exactly where we're going. We are never in disagreement. I'm not just worried about the camera pushing or being a nice dolly. I'm all concerned about their performance. We have that communication, and we can manage to make the emotions real. The tone is not real, but the emotions are. And I think the actors, first of all, I think casting is 50% of a directing job. Is you cast the right actor with the right energy, and of course when you adapt the script. Jessica, I had never done a part like this ever, and I knew she could do it. And when she chose Lucille, when she read the screenplay, I thought it was extremely smart, because in Gothic, I think the heroes are like fiber and vegetables. They're nice for you, but the banquet, the dessert is the villain. And that's pure sugar and calories, and it's a banquet. And she chose dessert. So now you want to help her make dessert real. And you give her, instead of making the bad guy bad, you give her delicate things. You say you really love him, and this is how you really love him. Unfortunately, sometimes you love somebody by suffocating them. And that's the downfall. It's controlling. And everything about her body language, clothing is controlling. She said to me, give me one clue to my character that I can use constantly. And I say, she doesn't blink. So she blinks 3 times in the whole movie. Tom Hiddleston, I wanted him to be almost like the younger brother. And he's by omission. By omission, he is sort of a coward and an accomplice, but he is truly the tragedy of that character is the chasm between who he is and who he wants to be, and again, I wanted to contrast a girl that lives in a super modern place but can see ghosts, which is a thing of the past, and a guy that lives in a place of the past but can see the future. And Tom embraced these things. Mia, I wanted her to be very sure of herself, but many times in creating a female hero, a huge mistake is made by immediately masculinizing. And I thought her center and her strength could be of the period, and be strong and powerful and serene. She doesn't have to just immediately become super active. I think that the movie tries to make a point through Lucille that Lucille thinks that pretty things are fragile. And I think I've seen in my life pretty strong stainless steel balls to the wall pretty things that can kick your ass. And I wanted her to be one of those. And as I said the other day to someone, I said, I put the damsel in distress through enough distress that she stops being a damsel and starts kicking ass. And Charlie Hunnam, when Charlie came, I said, you're going to be half Sherlock Holmes and half damsel in distress. You will be the damsel in distress. And to Charlie's credit, he said, I'm in. I want to be the damsel in distress. So I don't even know what your question was.
But you answer all. But how much you storyboard this film and I mean the blocking of the scenes, and there's scenes that are really tough, like that, the one that in the father in the bathroom and all that thing that you do so well. How much you storyboard or how you work with them in the blocking? If there's a lot of rehearsals before, how you manage the everyday a day in a set with you? They know already you did rehearsals before start shooting, or in the day you block the scene, or how much they are storyboard?
Well, I always storyboard the entire movie, yes, but I storyboard and decide lenses very early on. But then every day I arrive 1 or 2 hours earlier than anyone with the actors, and we block one last time. When we already shot a few weeks, I edit every day at lunch and at wrap. So Tuesday I show you all the footage we shot on Monday. It's already cut with music and effects. Wednesday, I show you everything up to Tuesday. So the actors are constantly watching, and we're involved in discussing, look, we didn't get this in this scene. Let's get it tomorrow. We can come back. And what we do is we block one last time, and many things come up on that day, and I treat storyboards as a backup plan. I say if anything better comes up, reboarding, I edit on paper a lot on the storyboards. And for example, the scene where she hits with the frying pan and she picks up the egg, that originally it was, she slapped Mia in the script. And I said, you know what? An American girl, you slap an American girl, she'll slap you back. And it'll net in a fucking cat fight to end all cat fights, because Mia is not going to take it easy. So I said, why don't we do this? And then you do a little Blanche Dubois with the eggs, and we went for that. Now the violence.
I would prefer the fight in the floor, by the way. That would have been cool.
You probably would. And then, for example, effects. Well, we created a prosthetic, everything. I approached, let me say this. I approached the movie saying, I want to build the sets and have the ghosts be actors in makeup effects on the set. I don't want digital extensions. I want the real deal. And so when you are doing violent scenes, obviously you're not going to improvise. We did a prosthetic cheek with a retractable thing to guide the knife in, and so on and so forth. You have to tube it. So you cannot improvise. So those things you storyboard, and then you know where you're going to cut. And I think it's important. The violence in the movie is very fast and brutal and to the point and out of it, because in the 1800s, when Gothic romance was at its highest, with Anne Radcliffe or Matthew G. Lewis with The Monk, they were very titillating pieces of literature, to the point where Lord Byron said famously, if everything else fails, shock them. Which it could have been William Castle or Roger Corman saying that you needed to revive the erotic and the violent elements that made them sort of titillating in the past. So, but that violence you storyboard carefully, you plan it carefully, and execute it.
How much the original story changed during it's a lot. So, I mean, there was major changes as you were. How many days you shoot?
We shot this in about 70 days. 70 days. I always shoot everything. I don't allow second unit. I shoot close-ups, I shoot wides, I shoot establishings, I shoot everything because I think I just mimic traumatized me, first of all, because we had 3 second units, and Jim Cameron said to me, look, second unit is bad news when it's bad and is worse news when it's good, and I would agree. You go, damn it. And that's not my shot, and so you always have this. I didn't get this fat by being generous with my food. I want all the donuts and all the rice and the chicken, So it's the same with the visuals. I want to shoot everything. And the 70 days are very tight. We did some stuff that was a little challenging, like when Mia is thrown off the balcony, it's Mia, and she really falls, and we really push her backwards, and we needed to rehearse that, make it safe and so forth. But 70 days were good enough, yeah.
So if you are editing every day, literally, how, after you finish the film, the shooting, how long it takes you to be ready for the films? I mean, you are almost ready a couple of weeks later, or how is the editing process?
Depends. I mean, Devil's Backbone, we cut negative 12 weeks after that. Done. It was done, and then I went to Prague to start Blade 2. God, I remember the Village Boys had one of my favorite reviews. He said the only thing remotely scary about Blade 2 is that it was done by the same director that did Devil's Backbone. But God forbid. And so this actually, we had a year. And I must say, they pried me away from Crimson Peak. I did, 25 color correction sessions. We did 12 music recording sessions. We mixed the movie entirely 3 or 4 times. I kept shifting.
What was happening?
Well, it's for me, I really wanted to come as close to the movie the way I saw it, and as this strange mixture of fable, fairy tale, gothic romance. I wanted to make sure that everything was exactly as I wanted it. And honestly, I could keep doing things. I mean, every time I see it, I go, I should have taken that shot out. I should have added that shot in. It's one of those, sometimes very fast. This is the first time I'm so obsessed. We only previewed 2 times, and both times were 20 and 30 minutes longer. The pacing was I was not happy with it, but I always say previews are to check what doesn't work, as opposed to check just what works. So, and then I locked the movie before Cannes, before May. I said, that's it, I'm done. I went to Cannes, and I kept sending emails from Cannes as a juror. I kept sending, change this, move this. I reopened it in June. It's sometimes it's not an exact science, Sometimes you keep screwing with it, keep screwing until they take it away and you cry.
So it seems that you have with me like the chronic unsatisfaction bug,
Yes.
Chronic unsatisfaction. Well, I think that it's a wonderful film, and you have the luxury to spend so much time to really polish and shape a beautiful a very unique piece of your cinematography, which I really enjoy, and I couldn't be more happy and proud to be here tonight with you, Guillermo. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this talk. You can watch video of this entire Q&A on our website at dga.org/events. On our website, you can watch all of our recent filmmaker Q&As, including another interview with Guillermo del Toro, conducted by Christopher Nolan, the director of The Dark Knight and Inception. If you enjoyed the director's cut, please subscribe to it on iTunes or our SoundCloud page so you won't miss an episode. This podcast is brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. Music is produced by Dan Wally. Coming up next week, Angelina Jolie Pitt will talk about directing her 3rd feature film, By the Sea, the story of a couple trying to rekindle their dormant relationship while on a vacation in an idyllic French seaside resort, starring Angelina Jolie Pitt and Brad Pitt. We hope you hear from us then.